Uh, Welcome again for grade 12 biology, the first unit. We have started already discussing about the application of biology, applied biology. Of course, we have seen application of biology in conservation of natural resources, in ensuring food and nutritional security, and creating conscious and active citizen. And the last part is application in biotechnology. Of course, the title says one for the for subtitle application of biotechnology. Simply, biotechnology is enough for this title. Biotechnology is modernity. By the way, biotechnology is not a new a new practice by human beings. Human beings began practicing biotechnology since ancient times. Of course, at organismal level. For example, hybridizing animals for better productivity is type of type of biotechnology. This is one type of biotechnology, and it has been in practice since ancient times. We can say what makes the modern biotechnology unique is that it we have brought organisms into the lab. Those small organisms into the lab, microorganisms especially, so that we are harnessing these microorganisms in industrial scale. Just like we do have such facility, we need such facilities. We need appropriate infrastructure starting from the land, the area, the site selection, and also we have to have these raw materials. All these raw materials, also we have to have expertise in specific field. We need to have specialists in laboratory, microbiology, all areas that are required in that specific biotechnology, whatever sector it is. Therefore, ይህ ነው የዘመኑ ባዮቴክኖሎጂ። የዘመኑ ባዮቴክኖሎጂ እጅግ ሶፊስቲኬትድ የሆኑ ማሽነሪዎች ያስፈልጉታል። እጅግ የሰለጠኑ ኤክስፐርቶች ያስፈልጉታል። በእያንዳንዱ ኤሪያ ላይ ማይክሮባዮሎጂ አይሶሌት አድርጎ ባክቴሪያን አይሶሌት አድርጎ ካራክተራይዝ አድርጎ ባህሪውን አውቆ ምን አይነት ጥቅም መስጠት እንደሚችል ለይቶ ያንን ኤክስፕሎይት ለማድረግ ኤክስፐርቶች ያስፈልጋሉ። የማይክሮባዮሎጂ ኤክስፐርቶች ያስፈልጋሉ። ላቦራቶሪ ቴክኒሻኖች ያስፈልጋሉ። የኢንዱስትሪ ኢንጂነሮች ያስፈልጋሉ። ኦል ዲስ ይሄንን ሴትአፕ ለመስራት እጅግ በጣም ሶፊስቲኬትድ ናቸው እና there are different areas of biotechnology. Therefore, today we are going to start the subtitle 1.4, which states according to the book application in biotechnology. Nothing but application of the science of biology in the technological world. In the technological world is known as biotechnology. There are different types of biotechnologies designed for different purposes, like biotechnology to produce antibiotic drugs, biotechnology to produce food, processed food, fermented foods, and biotechnology for environmental treatment of toxic wastes, whatever. There are diverse areas of application of biology in its modern industrial scale. We are going to see. Therefore, this is just I am showing you this to see how much it is sophisticated, and also it is one of the rapidly developing areas of application of the science of biology. And therefore, by the way, it is a big area of demand for experts in this area for the future. If you want to proceed in biology, this area, that is the area of biotechnology, you can specialize in the area of the different types of biotechnological fields, so that you will have there is a big demand for the experts in the market around the world. And it's rapidly developing science, and it's also attractive science, lucrative science, lucrative. They are making huge businesses. You see, there are international biotechnological businesses which are making money, huge sum of money. Therefore, it's a big area of investment also. Therefore, you can profit if you specialize in any field of biotechnology. When it comes to biotechnology application, we have to first talk about food production, application of biotechnology in food production and processing. So it's not only production but processing also. We can process our food for what purpose? To make your food tasty, to have good smell, good taste, good flavor, and also nutritional quality. You can you can produce from microorganisms. You can multiply microorganisms to be used as food, or you can make microorganisms like bacteria to produce food substances like proteins. You see, therefore, microorganisms can be used as food, or they can be used to process your food to change the chemistry of your food. They can change the chemistry of your food. What is the purpose of changing the chemistry of your food by applying microorganisms? Of course, they are used to preserve you. If your food is fermented, it can stay for long period of time in the shelf without spoilage. Therefore, to increase shelf life. Plus, it also adds nutritional value. When microorganisms are acting on your food, they add some vitamins, some minerals also. So some even some amino acids are also brought to your food after it has been fermented. Fermented foods. It is better to eat fermented foods than eating unfermented foods. This is scientifically proven. Therefore, biotechnology in the food production and processing sector. Let's see this part. Very huge biotechnological sector. In food biotechnology, we use microorganisms, bacteria, viruses are not included here, bacteria, algae, fungi, single-celled fungi. All these microorganisms are used in food biotechnology, well, to be used as food. The microorganisms, as I have tried to show you, እንዳለ ራሳቸው ማይክሮኦርጋኒዝሞችን አራብተን በኢንዱስትሪ ውስጥ ምቹ ሁኔታ አራብተን ለምግብ እንጠቀማለን። ወደፊት በሱፐር ማርኬት ደረጃ የባክቴሪያ ቂጣ፣ የባክቴሪያ ብስኩት ታሽጎ ሊመጣል ይችላል። ባክቴሪያ ሪች በተለይ በፕሮቲን የበለጸገ ምግብ imagine. Therefore, this is one area to be used as food. Microbes, you can fungus, ትልልቆቹ ፈንገሶች እንበላለን። እንጉዳይ ምግብ ነው። እኛ ሀገር አልተለመደም። እንጉዳይ በጣም የሚጣፍጡ እንጉዳዮች ትልልቅ ሆቴል የምታገኟቸው የእንጉዳይ ዝርያዎች አሉ። ግን ይስት ራሱ ተራብቶ ይስት ሲንግል ሴል ፈንገስ ነው። እንዲያውም ይስቶች ናቸው ለመጀመሪያ ጊዜ የሰው ልጅ ማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሞችን ለምግብነት ሲያውል ጀርመን ውስጥ ነው። በሁለተኛ የዓለም ጦርነት አንድ ኢንዱስትሪ ይስቶችን አራብቶ ከይስቶች ኤክስትራክት የተደረገ ፕሮቲን ለሰው ልጅ አቅርበዋል። ይቀላል፣ ከባክቴሪያ ይልቅ ይቀላል። ምክንያቱም ዛሬ ባክቴሪያ ስትለው ከባክቴሪያ የተመረተ ፕሮቲን ናብላ በብስኩት በኬክ መልክ ብታቀርብለት ባክቴሪያን የሚያውቀው ሰው ከበሽታ አንጻር ነው። ስለዚህ የሰው ልጅ ጭንቅላት ላይ መስራት አለበት። ኢትስ ቬሪ ዲፊካልት። ግን አሁን እንደምንጠቀምበታል እንደ ፉድ ሳይሆን when you use a substance as a food ለሰው ልጅ ነው። as a feed ከሆነ ለእንስሳት ለዶሮ ለውሻ ምግብነት ልታውለው ትችላለህ። እና የመጀመሪያው የባዮቴክኖሎጂ ፉድ ማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሞችን ለምግብነት አምርቶ ማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሞችን አራብቶ ለምግብነት ራሱ ማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሙን ወይም ደግሞ ማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሙ ያመረተው ፕሮቲኑን ኤክስትራክት አድርጎ ለምግብነት ያዋለው ኢንዱስትሪ የጀርመን ኢንዱስትሪ ነው። ሁለተኛ ዓለም ጦርነት ከይስት የተመረተ ፕሮቲን ነው። እና ራሱ አሁን this area is a new area. now you can multiply ባክቴሪያውን እንዳለ ከባክቴሪያ የማይፈለገው ነገር especially when we use microorganisms for as food እንዳለ ለፉድ ስንጠቀምባቸው ከማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሙ ምኑ ነው ለሰው ልጅ አንድ ላይ ቢገባ ችግር የሚያስከትል የሚባለው ኒውክሊክ አሲድ ኒውክሊክ አሲዱን ኤክስትራክት ማድረግ አለበት። ዲኤንኤ እና አርኤንኤ ምግብ አይደለም ወደ ሰውነታችን ሲገቡ ኔጌቲቭ ኢምፓክት ስላላቸው እነሱን ፊልተር አድርጎ ኤክስትራክት አድርጎ ማስወገድ ሌላው ችግር የለው። ትልቁ ችግር የማይክሮ ኦርጋኒዝሞችን እንደ ምግብ ስንጠቀም when we are using microorganisms especially bacteria Okay, microbes, microorganisms. In the food biotechnology, we use microorganisms, one, to be used, just microorganisms to be used as just as food, or we may take the protein part of those microorganisms and produce. I will tell you about this. Therefore, one area in food biotechnology, one area that we are using microbes is just we are using them as food, source of food. The second is to we use microorganisms to act on our food to produce fermented food. I do have examples also. The third is to produce nutrients. You can make you multiply bacteria in a controlled environment in the industries by providing their food, by providing suitable temperature, suitable pH, whatever they need. So they produce you nutrients. For example, you can use yeast bacteria or any other microorganism to produce you vitamin C, vitamin B, B2, B12. What are these? Nutrients. Okay, not only using microorganisms as a food, but you can make microorganisms undergo chemical reaction so that they produce you nutrients such as vitamins, which can be added onto your food as vitamin supplement to prevent deficiency, vitamin deficiency. Vitamin deficiency, there are some vitamin deficiencies which can kill you. Vitamin A deficiency, it can blind you. Vitamin A deficiency can blind you. Not only blinding, it can kill you because vitamin A is essential for immune system, strength of immune system. Therefore, in order to prevent deficiency diseases or the problems caused by deficiency disease, you can use microorganisms in industry to produce nutrients. So these nutrients can be vitamins which can be added onto food to prevent deficiency diseases. Now, the first area, when microorganisms grown to be used as food or feed. Remember, when microorganisms are used as food, they are consumed by human beings. When they are used as feed, they are consumed by animals. We are preparing microorganisms or organic food molecules from microorganisms to be used by domestic animals like dog or cattle, whatever it is. Nowadays, the big area of service that microorganisms grant us in biotechnology using microorganisms, the most common is using microorganisms as a feed, because I've told you earlier the human, we have to first, before producing microorganisms, before producing protein from bacteria, or before using bacteria as source of protein, food made from bacteria as source of protein, and if we try to invest on this investment, this production of food, protein rich food from bacteria, and um, go to the market, there may be bankruptcy immediately, because we have to work first on the human mentality about bacteria before we produce protein rich bacteria, food produced from bacteria, which is rich in protein, so that we can uh, sell it in the market. That's a big problem. We have to first work on the human mind to convince how bacteria are, majority of bacteria are harmless, so that we can, it is possible to produce proteins or be used, the bacteria itself to be used as food source, so that once you convince the general public, you may invest, and so that your industry investment will be profitable. Otherwise, so far we are, most of the time, most of the technologies that use microorganisms as food source are producing not food now, feed, especially when bacteria is the concern. Otherwise, there are algae. Algae are also used as source of protein, and they are being consumed by human beings. When it says algae, oh, they are green photosynthetic organisms, single cell green photosynthetic organisms. Less easier. If you are told that there is a protein source, food protein source in the supermarket made from algae, that is easier than telling you there is a protein source made from bacteria. This is when bacteria is immediately coming to your mind. You always associate bacteria with disease. Therefore, this must be first changed, the human mentality. Now, when microorganisms grown to be used as food and feed, I do have some examples. The first example, microorganism being used as food source is the single cell protein, SCP, single cell protein. The term single cell protein refers to the dried microbial cells. You see, they are cells, but these cells contain proteins. Microbial refers to microorganism cells or total protein. You leave the cell, extract the protein. Total protein extracted from pure microbial cell. You see, in two ways. In two ways. Either you consume the whole cell, dried bacteria, or you extract the protein part only from the bacteria so that it can be used as source of protein. And this protein is obtained from single-celled organisms like bacteria, algae, single-cell algae, yeast, single-cell yeast, molds, single-cell molds. That's why they are known as single-cell proteins. You see, single-cell. When you say single-cell protein, such foods, either dried microbial cells or protein extract, they are not only proteins. They also contain minerals like calcium, phosphate together with the protein. But most of the nutrition is protein. That's why we call it single cell protein. Protein obtained from single cell organisms. To me, protein obtained from single cell organisms. What are these single cell organisms? I will tell you. There are many: bacteria, yeasts, molds, algae. There are some examples listed. Therefore, here also algae, bacteria, filamentous fungi, yeast, which can be used as food or feed. Imagine, food for human consumption, feed for animal consumption. Therefore, this is one area of application of microorganisms to be used directly as food, or their products to be used as macronutrient. Macronutrient in this case, which is macronutrient? Protein. Protein. The human body requires at least 6 nutrients: carbohydrate, protein, fat, minerals, vitamins, and water. The first three, carbohydrates, protein, and fats are the macronutrients. We require them in higher amount every time, every day. We require higher amount of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. These three are known as macronutrients because they are relatively required in higher amount every day. Therefore, protein is macronutrient. You see, it's source of macronutrient. You can use these single cell organisms, algae, bacteria, filamentous fungi, yeast, a source of either protein. The protein is produced by these microorganisms, or extract and use it, or you may use all the algae, the bacteria, filamentous as it is, as food. That's why we call it single cell protein. And the first attempt, I have told you already, the first attempt by humans to make microorganisms as source of food was in Germany. Therefore, Germans take the priority in trying microorganisms to be used. And the microorganisms, they multiplied in industries to be used as food source yeasts. Therefore, in the history of protein production from microorganisms, single cell production, refer to Germany. When? Europe, Germany, when? Second World War, 1940s. What was the organism tried to be multiplied in industry to be used as source of protein? That's yeast, the usual yeast fermentation process, either in our bread or in our alcoholic drinks. Yeast. Therefore, this is as far as history is concerned, history of single cell protein production. And another example here is then after recently, there is a protein-rich food made by this bacteria, Methyloficus methylotrophus. Methyloficus methylotrophus. This bacteria is found to be really smart bacteria because if you multiply this bacteria in industries, it can produce you special types of proteins with large number of essential amino acids. Essential amino acids, very essential amino acids. Therefore, the type of protein produced by this bacteria is known as protein, a type of single cell protein made by the bacterium Methyloficus methylotrophus. Single cell proteins also contains carbohydrates. I have told you already. Not only protein. When we say single cell protein, it may refer to the fact that these foods produced from these microorganisms are only contained, but no. They contain small amount of carbohydrate, lipids. Of course, nucleic acid is not important as component. They also contain minerals, even vitamins are there. However, the amount of vitamins, minerals, lipids, carbohydrates is proportionally very smaller as compared to the protein. The lion's share of these foods produced microorganisms contain protein. Therefore, especially in areas where kids or children are suffering from deficiency of protein, they are really big solutions. If you make proteins from microorganisms and supply to areas where children are suffering from kwashiorkor, protein deficiency, that's a big deal, big solution. The composition depends, the composition of the food. You see, the food that you produce from microorganisms, the single cell protein, we have said that the majority of the component is protein, of course. The composition of the food that you produce from the microorganism depends upon the organism that you are using. Which organism are you using? Are you using bacteria? Which bacteria? Are you using yeast? Which yeast? Are you using malt? Which malt? Algae? Which algae? These organisms determine the type of the chemistry of the food. And also the substrate you use, the substrate. What type of food did you give the microorganism during multiplication in industries? Therefore, you are growing organisms. Microorganisms are grown in the industry. When you grow microorganisms in the industry, you have to give them food. Therefore, the type of food that you give to the microorganism plus the type of microorganism determines the content of the single cell protein. The amount of protein is determined by this. The amount of carbohydrate, lipid, nucleic acid, mineral. For example, if you take this one, nucleic acid, the amount of nucleic acid in foods made from bacteria and in foods made from yeast are different. The amount of nucleic acid in foods made from bacteria are higher than single cell protein produced by yeast. You see, single cell protein produced by bacteria do have higher amount of nucleic acid. That's not good as component of our food because nucleic acids have negative impacts when we consume them together with our food. Therefore, the composition of the food produced single cell protein is determined by two factors: organism and the substrates that you give to the microorganism. Then the microbes employed in single cell protein production. Now I'm telling you some common microorganisms that we are using in single cell production. These groups are yeasts. There are many species of yeasts. Some of these are, you have to know at least this one. At least this one. There are many others. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the usual yeast that we are using for fermentation in beer industry, locally at home, injera or bread making. Candida utilis, another mold, yeast-like mold. This one is Candida lipolytica. This is another single cell candidate yeast, which can, if we multiply this in industries, it can provide protein-rich food. Geotrichum candidum, Citalidium acidophilus, and Saccharomyces fragilis. Saccharomyces. You see, two species of Saccharomyces. These are yeasts which are used. By the way, Germans used Saccharomyces cerevisiae as the first single-cell protein source organism. And these are yeasts. Now, this example, at least you have to know at least this. Not only this, there are many varieties. Still, scientists are trying to isolate new variety of yeasts from different environments to select and screen out the best yeast, the best. In what regard? The best in providing the best food source, the best protein source, the best nutritional source. They isolate from their environment, select, characterize, they study them in the laboratory, characterize them, and they tell us all this yeast is really very good in producing variety of protein. So if we multiply this and use as food, that is very important, very crucial, and very nutritionally rich. Therefore, you have to select the best. Select the best to make your industry, food industry, profitable, so that you can multiply and sell your products to the public. And the other is fungi, molds. Fungi, molds. These are yeast is fungus, yes. These are not yeasts. These are one group of fungi. These are single cell fungi, which are small single cell fungi, which are not yeasts, but they are molds. From this group, these are the candidates selected as source of specially protein or nutrition as a whole, as food source. Aspergillus oryzae, Fusarium venennatum, Sclerotium rolfsi, Aspergillus niger, see, two species of Aspergillus, Trichoderma viride, and Bacillomyces varietate. These are the candidates, and there are many others. Simply, these are the selected as the best as far as food industry is concerned, as source of single cell protein. You see, and these are molds, not yeasts. The other are bacteria. There are a few bacteria here, but not only these bacteria. There are many others. Even there are researches isolating other bacteria to be used as single cell protein. From bacteria, if you know these three, together with, of course, the source of protein, you know this protein, you know this Metylophecus, Metylotrophus. This is also one candidate. I didn't describe it in the under this list of bacteria. This Rhodopseudomonas capsulata, Achromobacter, Delvavate, Bacillus megatherium. These are the three together with the other. Therefore, these are the bacteria selected as source of single cell protein or as source of protein rich food. The others are algae, really algae. Here there is huge research. Nowadays, even foods are produced from algae, especially chlorella and spirulina. They multiply, scientists are multiplying this in artificial ponds, because they are photosynthetic. They need water aquarium, just artificial water bodies are built. You multiply them. by keeping the environmental condition suitable for multiplication of this. then you extract and process it, and you produce protein-rich. Not only protein, it also contains many other chemicals. You can see these two algae are really very much exploited as source of food, single cell protein. Chlorella versus spirulina, even their difference started from their color trends. Chlorella is a green algae, spirulina is blue-green algae. This all these criteria, you see, it's contain more chlorophyll than spirulina. Amount of chlorophyll, they are different. The amount of proteins they contain differ. The amount of minerals they contain differ. Even other pigment molecules are different. The amount of fat they contain, for example, this contains spirulina is a better source of fatty acid, known as GNA fatty acid. This fatty acid is very much important in the nervous system as well as for healthy functioning heart. Okay, now these are the two different types of algae, or even one is algae, of course, chlorella, the other is spirulina, blue-green algae, and included under blue-green algae. Therefore, these are currently highly exploited, multiplied, especially America is, I think, leading in investments that involves production of single-cell protein from chlorella and spirulina by using artificial ponds. And they are considered as the future promise in terms of food security for the global population. These two algae, huge research. When it comes to advantage of SCP, single cell protein, now I think I have shown you single cell proteins from and the sources. These microorganisms are multiplied in suitable condition in the industries, so that they are made to produce proteins plus new food sources rich in protein and other nutrients. And when it comes to advantage of SCP, single cell protein over animal proteins, single cell protein over animal proteins, single cell protein do not need land or large space to produce. For example, animal protein, you need to have space, large space to multiply your cattle for meat production. Space it needs. When it comes to for single cell protein, just protein produced from microorganisms, you don't need that much huge space and grazing land. You don't. Microbes used for SCP can be grown on a relatively cheap nutrient sources. You can grow microorganisms in the lab and the industries by providing them cheap nutritional sources. On starch, you can grow them on starch, corn starch, by providing some additional growth factors. So one advantage of using single cell protein is that when you grow the microorganisms to produce single cell protein, for growth, the microorganisms do not need cheap nutrition source. So your investment will be a good investment. The other is producing food in this way uses less energy. Therefore, still, it makes your investment in single cell protein profitable. Plus, also, they are, when you produce single cell protein for microorganisms, the process by itself is less environmentally, causes less environmental pollution. When you multiply cattle for meat, animal meat, the cattle releases methane to the atmosphere. This is greenhouse gas. Therefore, it is negative impact on the ecosystem. Therefore, it's free, relatively free. Single cell proteins also provide some eco-friendly way of producing protein source. Therefore, these are the advantages of using single cell proteins. We are done now.